Hello everybody, welcome to number 27 and to the segment that you've all been waiting for. The Influenzo, which is just there, is finally getting rebuilt. For those of you that are not familiar with the Influenzo saga, let me give you a 20-second recap. So I first saw this car the day before it was due to be auctioned off, and I wondered what moron would be buying a very cheap, obviously broken and uncared for Ferrari 308. Well, it turned out that that moron was me. I suddenly decided and rationalised it'd be a good idea to have a bid, and if it went cheap enough, it'd be alright. Much to my shock and horror, I won this car. When it arrived, it wasn't even running. It's had a host of problems, over 30 videos. But for the purpose of this, what you need to know is I found that one of the heads was cracked. So I had to buy a second-hand head, and then I got both reconditioned, fitted them back to the car, thinking, naively, that it would now be fixed. It wasn't. It was using a huge amount of oil. Naturally, I thought that since the top end had been rebuilt, it had to be a bottom end problem. But luckily, in a way, it turned out it was an issue with the top end. The valve stem seals that were used had come loose. So I then had to take the heads off again, get them rebuilt again, and that is where we are now. But the thing is, will this car now finally be fixed? Almost 3 years after I bought it. So I've had the heads back. The guys who redid them did a fantastic job. Didn't make me pay a penny for all the labour that they did. And what did they do? They actually completely rebuilt them all over again. So they bought some genuine Ferrari guides with the genuine valve stem seals, which were the problem all along, changed them all over. Not just that, even the valve seats were changed to new seats. So they are essentially, for all intents and purposes, brand new heads. So really happy about that. One thing though is, because they have been changed so much now, those valve clearances are going to be completely off. So I have already put in, this is how the heads work. There is a bucket which sits just under there. And then there is a shim, and that is what actually adjusts the clearance between the cam and the valves. I've noted down what size shims are on each bank, and by working out the clearance that it has at the moment, which will be off, I can work out what size shim I need to use. I have a load of older shims here, but I think I'm probably going to end up having to buy some more shims to get it all to work out. But essentially you have this pry bar tool. You may have seen it in my previous videos where I was cursing to high heaven about how awkward and horrible it is to do this. You force it in to push the bucket down, because obviously the bucket is on a spring. Then you push it right down, and with this, it's so fiddly. You hook it behind the cam, and then you try and get it to sit just on the edge, very difficult, of the bucket, but without touching the shim itself. You have to get it to sit just on the edge, but not too far in, otherwise it will keep the shim pushed down, and, get my face out, and then you won't be able to get the shim out. So it's really fiddly, really annoying, horrible job. So then you sort of edge the screwdriver in, pop the shim up like that. Oh no! Then what happens is exactly what's happened now, which is this slips off the edge of the bucket. Ugh. But let me just show you how that changeover of the shift is actually, of the shim is actually supposed to take place. I'm happy with all the clearances now. I mean, you can see it looks like a mess, but I can understand it. So at least a couple of weeks have passed, unfortunately, because I just had other things to do with filming videos, doing all that kind of stuff. Things going wrong, like my Bismarck breaking down, selling that, doing work on the Lotus. But anyway, I am back now. Now this head is the rear head. You can tell because it doesn't have a drive for the distributor. And essentially this is you can see these are the exhaust ports, and it faces that way with the belt here. So this is the rear head. This is good, ready to go. This is the front head, and this is the one that I'm going to have to deassemble, take the cams out, and studs before I can fit it back. So just those things to do, then put the heads back, and then everything else. Managed to slip on the front head without too much trouble. I've decided before putting the cams on and all the other bits, I'm already going to tighten that down. So the head studs are going to be tightened down. Because, well, there's more room to do it really, so it kind of makes sense, and then I'll finish assembling it. Before I put the head on, and I did this on both banks, I ran some grease around each of the cylinders, then turned the engine over so that the pistons would come up, then drop back down, leaving the grease with any dirt that was still in there. I'd hoovered them very carefully, and I'd been very careful throughout this time not to get dirt down there, but just to be absolutely certain, the grease trick does seem to help. So another bit of time has passed, and as you can see, it's a little bit chaotic in here, but I have actually made some good progress. The heads are now on, and they have been torqued down, so that was pretty good. I've also put the cams back on the front head as well, which all had to be done. I can't remember if I mentioned that before. They had to come off before it went on. Also the belts, the belt tensioners, bits that are all off before, they're now back on. Everything is tensioned up and ready to go. And also these other bits of the heads, which were for the intakes, they were missing previously. I've now torqued them, screwed them back on. The exhaust is fully back in place as well. The headers were, as previously, a massive pain. I decided while I was here and doing all this that I may as well change one of the sump gaskets. The gearbox sump had already been done before, and the engine oil sump hadn't, and that was leaking. I think the other one is still leaking a little bit as well, but anyway, I wanted to change it. I thought that'd be a really quick job. Like everything else, it ended up taking a few hours because, first of all, being the absolute genius that I am, I assumed, because I started doing this and took the heads off months ago, that I drained the oil. So I just started undoing all the bolts on the sump, and you can see what happened next, basically. So that just made it take so much longer because I had to do a little bit at the time. I had to clean, scoop, whatever. Then I had another little disaster, which was that I left one of the bowls of oil under the rear wheel. And as I was lowering this fantastic gadget here, which has helped me quite a lot, the car went down, crushed it, and the oil went everywhere. But in the end, I managed to get the sump off. It's really heavily baffled, and I was quite surprised about that. I didn't realise it would be quite that baffled. And it made it quite difficult to take input out. One of the pipes inside there was slightly bent as well, which made it difficult. So I don't know why that was. But that's all sorted. That's gone back in. Put a tiny, tiny bit of silicone just to try and make sure it holds. And now it's a question of getting everything back together. Before we do, let's talk a little bit about this. So this little jack, which is called a quick jack, it's an American-made product, is fantastic. But more to the point, the battery that I'm using was supplied by Taina Batteries, who support the channel. I've never done integrations. They have never asked me to talk about what they do. They've been brilliant like that, you know, because most sponsors try and get you to talk for 30 seconds or a minute about what they do. So I quickly just want to thank them again and say, if you need a car battery, a quad battery, motorbike battery, a leisure battery, caravan battery, anything like that, I really massively recommend them. They're just a brilliant sponsor because they don't make me do what I'm doing now every single video, and they haven't asked me to do this now. I'm doing it off my own back just because they've been so supportive. And secondly, because I'm genuinely happy to support them, because everything I've heard about them is that they are just good. You know, they offer a brilliant service, well priced, and there is a discount link in the video description, so do have a look at that. But now, I'm going to lower the quick jack and then get back to the engine and start putting the cam covers back on, then the carbs, connect it all up, the various oil lines, but quite getting close. So a bit of mega paranoia here, but I'm just checking that everything lines up. It should now be TDC on cylinder 1, which is this one. And you can see I've put little red dabs to make them easier to see, but all these sort of little marks line up on all the cams, front and back. Flywheel also lines up there. You can see the little mark. And the two cams for cylinder 1 are pointing up and out. which means this is the right cycle as well, in theory. Attention to detail is obviously a really crucial part of number 27. So I had forgotten, I've been filling up the oil and the coolant. This pipe I had tucked right away, completely forgotten about it. So coolant was just squishing out of there, but I'll just tighten that, sort it, and then carry on filling it. Right everyone, well it isn't completely ready to go because I haven't got the airbox on top, the fluids will need topping up and all the rest of it, but I think it is ready to fire up. See if it actually starts, and then afterwards I can do things like put the mudguard back on, and then the wheel, and then the airbox, and then take it for a spin. Now I'm going to have to take it without that lid, without the engine lid, but with the airbox on it should be alright. It's also quite snowy out there still, so not ideal conditions. But anyway, first of all, let's see if it starts, and then I need to do everything else. Right, well that's not good. It's turning over. I know there's fuel going through because I checked last night and I can hear it trickling into the other tank. But so far, no sign of life whatsoever. So I'm wondering, have I got something wrong? Or is it sparking? We'll check all that. So it's just like old times, isn't it, when I muck everything up, but I think I've worked out what it is. So the rotor arm has this top contact, but it also has one lower down. That is because this has two rows of contacts, as you can see, the lower ones and the upper ones, and what I've done is I've timed cylinder 1 to this, where I should have timed it to the one round the side. So I'm going to take this off, flip it round 180 degrees, and then refit it. Okay, so I did get it started. I'm not sure if I recorded it or not, but it was running really, really badly, and I was mucking about with the timing to see if that could be the issue. So I suspect, on top of doing what I did, which is get the rotor arm wrong, I also got the rotor out by one tooth. But anyway, I'm going to try and start it again now, and we'll see what it does. Okay, one last attempt for this video. I've mucked around. I'm pretty sure it's the timing. The mechanical timing, I checked and rechecked so many times. I can't believe that would be off. So I think when I moved, so I did try and move the rotor back one spot, but I reckon I moved it in the wrong direction. I was just working out direction of travel now. So I've moved it the other way. Let's give it one last go, because you'll say I'm really patient, but I'm on a bit of a deadline with this, and I really have to get it done. Finally, it is sounding pretty good. So what did I do wrong? A bit of everything to do with that distributor. So firstly, I got the rotor the wrong way around, and then I did have it off by one spline. So the great news is, it is now working. It's sounding pretty good. I just checked the carbs are already pretty well balanced, so I must have kept everything very close in terms of all the levers and so on. Can probably do with a tiny bit of a tune-up, but at the moment what I've got to do is I've got to get the fluids going round, because at the moment I think there's still some air bubbles in there. I think taking it for a drive is going to be the only way. It was the only way last time that completely cleared the bubbles. So we'll do that, but not for this video. This is it for today, but it is good news. Don't worry about the steam you see coming out. It is not oil smoke, but I'll see how it drives, obviously, and I am going to take it out, but that will appear in the next video, which is coming after this one. So they'll both be released the same week. I think it's going to be Christmas week or next week, I don't know. But anyway, in the next one, I'm going to give you a whole roundup of everything that I've had to fix on this car, and the final tally of how much it has all cost me as well, which is going to be quite something. But now I'm going to get on with just putting everything back together as much as I can for a drive. I'm going to take it out without the lid, just for a quick drive. But yeah. Thank you so much for watching. I know some of you have been pining after more of this content, and so here you go. Happy Christmas.